All right. Clap one on three. One, two, three. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're so glad that you're here. As always, I am your host, Lauren Ash, and as always, I am joined by my co-hostess with the mostess, Christy Oxborrow. How you feeling?
I'm doing great.
I gotta tell you something.
Yeah.
We are recording this
hmm
in the middle of World Series week, and it's been a battle.
hmm
Uh,
hmm
we've seen an 18 inning game. It's rare.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, did you hear also about how Brad Paisley?
Yeah. Well, actually, that very much beautifully comes into I'm not a baseball person.
Yeah,
You know this.
yeah,
Um, uh, 3 seasons of softball as a child does not baseball fan make.
sure.
So I had a couple of baseball related questions, if I may.
Fantastic.
And Brad Paisley will come up,
Oh,
which is
fantastic. Oh my
which is how
God.
this all, you know.
Well, I didn't know. Listen, we don't communicate before these records. No, that's a lie. We communicate endlessly before these records, just not about work. Keep
About
going.
everything else. This is just who we
Everything
are.
but. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay. So, now some of these may be like dumb questions, but again, I just genuinely don't know. Um, do all the players get to bat?
Okay. So there yes but no but. So there's more players than play, right? So on the lineup, the beginning of every
Sure.
game they're like, "Here's your Blue Jays lineup," right? And so they'll list all the players that are playing.
Sure.
But there are times if somebody gets hurt or sometimes to screw with the other team's pitcher, they may put in a pinch batter, for example, pinch hitter. Uh
I know what that means.
So what that means is that say it's George Springer in the lineup. This
I
happened the
know
other night.
he's one of two of the Blue Jays I know.
Yes. And so the other night he hurt himself during a swing. And so then they're like, we got to throw in a pinch batter. So a pinch hitter. I keep saying pinch batter, but it's pinch hitter. And so then that means that's another person off the bench who's then batting, who's then in the game, right? So
Is that someone who was on the little lineup before?
no, he wouldn't have been on the lineup
So this is
before.
like a surprise reveal.
This is well, yeah. Again, they bring more people than they need, basically, right?
Sure.
So, uh, yeah. So I believe there's nine on the field, but there's I want to say 22 on the bench.
Wow.
Listen, you're already. I'm like somebody's gonna be like, yeah, that's not correct. I mean, this is already going beyond my. I don't count them. But what I will say is that in the National League, let me take a step back. Baseball is split into two separate leagues. There's the American League and then there's the National League. Okay.
Right.
The National League teams, everybody bats, including the pitcher. In the American League, the pitchers don't bat.
I was going to specifically ask about the pitchers.
Yeah.
They're already doing enough arm work.
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. And I truly, I do not know why there's the differentiation. I don't know why one went one way and the other went the other. I have no idea. But Shohei Ohtani, for example,
Oh,
who's the big star
he's a famous one, yeah.
in the Dodgers. He is a pitcher as well as like one of their best batters. Hitters. Why do I keep saying batter? Batter up, hear that call. A league of their own. Um, anyway,
Yeah.
Otani is one of the few who's like exceptionally good at both.
Wow.
Yeah,
So he's like a double threat.
he is.
Wow.
He is.
Okay.
Sometimes I find him not fun to play with. And I know that that's a controversial take because some people are like, he's the best in the game. He might be the best player to ever live. What a thrill it is to see this person playing. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not as fun when like every time they go to bat, they hit a home run. Like, it's like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like, it's like,
it's
I
less
think
special.
it's less special when anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just like that I took notes to have my questions. Now, does a pitcher only intentionally walk a player because they're concerned that player will hit a home run?
Intentionally walk a player? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've seen like, oh, he intentionally walked that guy, or like something about like maybe that's not how it's phrased, but something about purposely
If they
walking someone.
purposely, yes. Yes. So it
Okay.
used to be that they would purposely walk somebody by
Yeah,
throwing four pitches, out of the strike zone just very quickly to the catcher. But
right.
now over time, it's been like maybe we could speed up the game by just having the coach go, "That's four," and then that person's intentionally walked, which is kind of a better way of doing it. It was so performative before.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. What does grounded out mean? Because it sounds sexual to me, but I cannot imagine that I'm right. If I am, I'll be delighted.
You'll love this. I don't want to fuck up any of these explanations. So grounded out, it's like, so if you hit a ball that's a home run, right? It
Yeah,
soars out of the park.
yeah,
If you hit a ball that doesn't have quite enough juice, right?
sure.
Uh, then it's not going to hit the ground, right? The player, the outfielder is going to just be able to catch it typically,
Got
right?
it.
Now, if you hit a ball and it kind of immediately goes into the ground, like goes low and it bounces, that's called a grounder.
Okay.
And if the person then catches it and throws it to the base and gets you out, I believe that is what we refer to as grounding out.
Got it. So not sexual.
Not as far as I know. But
Okay.
by the way, I've never been in the locker room
Yet.
yet.
Now this is more of a general statement than a question. Um,
Fantastic.
I I haven't seen like a ton of baseball, but I've seen more in the last week than I've seen,
Sure.
in years. There's a lot less player hugging than I expected. It's mostly high fives, and I was a little disappointed.
A lot of butt taps too.
Oh, sure. And I'm
Yeah.
okay with that as well. It's just I come I love that this is how I'm phrasing it. I come from a hockey background and we're hugging all the time.
Well, there's also more equipment in between, right?
Oh, and they
You know
don't
what I
want to
mean?
physically feel it in baseball.
Well, if they're hugging, they're feeling everything. You know what I mean? Like that's what my diary is about. You know
And
what I'm saying?
we've turned it back to sexual. Okay,
Yeah,
good
it,
to
it
know.
gets there very
Good to know.
quickly. They wear tight pants. Yeah.
I respect that. Um, and then here we go. Every time Brad Paisley sings the national anthem at a World Series game, the game goes into extra innings. The internet tells me game two in 2017 went 11 innings. Game three in 2018 went 18. Game one in 2024 went 10 innings. Game three in 2025 went 18 innings. My question, do you think he'll ever be asked to sing the anthem again?
If the MLB knows what's good for them, the answer is no. No one can survive
Mm.
an 18 inning game. It is absolutely that's two full baseball games.
Yeah.
And I got to have a moment about our boys cuz they're good boys, okay? Here's what to keep in mind.
Hmm.
For example, if someone who is on the main roster, the
Yeah.
lineup,
Yeah.
okay? Let's say what happened in that game, Kirky, Alejandro Kirk, he's our catcher, great
Oh,
hitter.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Great
yeah.
hitter.
Okay.
Kirky got a base run, so he was on first base. And then
Okay.
he's sometimes they think not the fastest runner, so they're like, we're gonna pull him and put in a pinch runner, okay? But then he's
Oh.
pulled for the game. Like you can't go back and forth. So
So once someone is pulled in to do something for you, you can't go
you're
back
in,
out.
right? It's like the
Got
mob.
it.
Yeah. So once you're in, you're in. Anyway,
Sure.
but what started to happen was over the course of the game, our coach John Snyder, he was doing that. I would say a fair amount, which is not in regular season play. I mean, you see it happen, but like in postseason play, it's like there's lots of factors here. Like they may be trying to save somebody,
Of
they don't want
course.
whatever. Anyway, long story short, I believe by the end of the ninth, I think the entire team was our, for lack of a better term, like our alts, like our B squad. B squad
Oh,
sounds terrible, but like it's not our
not the main roster.
right, correct.
Right.
So to with that in mind, because the Dodgers weren't doing as many substitutions as we did, the
Sure.
idea that those boys held off the Dodgers for another 9 innings, it's incredible. And it is further proof that they're not a B squad. They're a damn good ball team. Every single one of those players on that team. And
Hmm.
yes, in the end, there was the home run that did win it for the Dodgers. But my God, it was beautiful baseball. And we played it not by getting home runs. We played it the old fashioned way. And we kept holding off those Dodgers, who are obviously one of the best teams in the league. And I think it was ultimately really a testament to what a great, great team we have. So I don't even see it as a real loss to me, because I think the real winning was the fact that they played that hard for that long. And one of my faves, Ernie Clement, did say something similar, that he's like, we're built, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically was like, we're not the typical, we're built different. We really want this. And I was like, yes, my guy.
I love you at all times, always. And I think that my love for you spikes the hardest when you're passionate.
Yeah.
Because, gosh, yeah, yeah, I get it. I mean, look, I'll go put on a jersey now. I don't have one, but like if I did, if I would go put on a Blue Jays jersey for sure.
Listen, I mean, I can get you one.
You
You
don't
just
need
say
to,
the word, baby.
you don't need to get me one. My point was, I mean, I briefly was like a Cubs fan. I guess if I was a real fan, I would have called them the Cubbies. But simply because that was the first, place I'd ever seen baseball, the only place I'd ever seen baseball. And it was a beautiful thing. So I was just like, oh, okay, here we go, Cubs. And then just not long after that, they won the first World Series in like 100 years or something. So you're welcome, Cubs fans, for bringing my extra energy. I kid. But no, I'm just saying, look, if you need someone else behind the Blue Jays, you're passionate enough that yeah, you could get me on board quickly.
This is what I've got to say. And you know what?
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna do this.
Oh no.
Here we go. I love this team.
Of
And I've
course.
always loved the team since I was
Yeah.
a kid. Like I always say, I was nine
Mhm.
years old when we watched that first World Series win. I was 10 years old when we watched the second. That imprints on you. You're a fan for life. Now, has it
Of
been tough
course.
for 32 years? Yes. Does it
Mhm.
make this even exponentially more exciting? Yes.
Of
And then
course.
I'm just invested in the boys. And I know you know what this is like. I'm invested in the boys. I'm
Mhm.
invested in their friendships. I love
Yeah.
that Barger was sleeping on Davis Schneider's couch for some reason. I'm like, don't they have housing for these men? I don't know the answer to that. But the point is this,
Mhm.
I love every bit of it. And this team is so exciting. I mean, we've got Trey Savage, who's 22 years old. He was moved up. He started the year in like the lowest level of Major League Baseball. He's moved his way up through the minors into the majors onto a team, and now he set records pitching in the game last night. He struck out 12 people. It's incredible. He's making $57,000 a year.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
keep saying, I'm like, oh, he just needs to get through the end of this season, and then next year, boy, oh boy, does he have some really good negotiating skills, or
Yes.
chips, you know. Anyway, but
Yes.
that's not what I wanted to get mean about for a second, and it's not mean. Look, my
Uh-huh.
passion is real. Anyone who knows me and anyone who follows me on social media knows this, and anyone who has seen me at the dozens of games that I've been to at the Rogers Center over the past 2 years, who wants to say hello and take a picture. It's always a pleasure. I'm always happy to.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that I'm legitimately in it. And that's why when
Mhm.
they're doing the coverage of the celebrities at the games. Now, do I view myself as being a celebrity? No. Do I view myself as being someone who gets stopped everywhere she goes because she gets recognized from television? Yes, that is a fact.
Of
So to me,
course.
there is a visibility there. And I'll be damned to see these fair weather bandwagoner celebs, and in the games in LA, they're not even wearing either team. I'm seeing these
Mhm.
celebs show up to get their photos taken at the World Series. They don't even have a Dodgers shirt on, let alone a Blue Jays one. So when I'm seeing these things come out and I'm being left out of these moments,
Mhm.
this quote unquote celeb that I would argue, other than maybe like Geddy Lee and Eugene Levy, probably one of the most genuinely invested, devoted fans. It
Mhm.
hurts.
Of course it
It
does.
hurts. It's tough. It's tough to go, oh, well, we didn't include Lauren Ash, but we did include this TikTok star no one's ever heard of before, other unless you're under the age of 16 and follow them on TikTok,
Mm.
who doesn't give a shit about being here or what this means. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I do. Couple of thoughts.
Please.
Um, One, never thought in a million years that I would ever hear you put a list that's literally Eugene Levy, Geddy Lee, and Lauren Ash. Never thought, but I love it. Canadian treasures all around. Um,
Yes.
I love that. Second, speaking of celebrities at that game, did you see
Meghan Markle.
Harry and Meghan wearing fucking Dodgers shit? Harry! You're
It's bad, guys.
the
It's the
link
Commonwealth.
the link to Canada is so wild.
And
Uh, Harry.
all the pictures of her wearing Blue Jays hats at different games over the years have now been surfacing, of course,
Mm,
because she lived here for years filming Suits.
of
I don't care
course.
for it. I don't care for it.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
out. Get out.
Hmm.
Anyway, and I know
Hmm.
what you're thinking, Lauren, really, like, do you really need recognition for being a fan? Of course I don't. Is it going to change how much I care about the team? Of course it's not. I resent the fact.
Mm.
I resent the fact that it's like just because who's ever is making these lists doesn't know who I am or doesn't think that I'm worthy of being an addition doesn't change the fact that I can't walk 2 feet in there without being stopped because people
Sure.
know me. It's just a fact. So to me, again, it's like, wouldn't you want to throw a bone to the Canadian who actually cares? I don't know.
It just feels it's an odd choice.
And there's
It's
so
an
many
odd
different
choice.
posts coming out from different influencers. Like, look at all the celebrities at the World Series. And I'm getting tagged in so many because people are like, you forgot Lauren Ash. You forgot Lauren Ash. You forgot Lauren Ash. And it's like,
Mhm.
anyway, to those of you tagging me in things, thank you. Because again, this is one of the few things that I really give a shit about. You know what I'm saying?
Of course. Now, so sorry, run it by me again. What's the name of that guy, that pitcher that's doing amazing things?
Trey, Trey.
Okay, then it is who I thought it was.
Yeah.
Did you see the post of the shot of him already walking to the dugout? And it's like the guy's swinging.
Well, that's Otani.
That's okay. That's what I thought. But it's like
Yeah.
he's still mid swing, and the pitcher's already like, I've got this, and is walking off to the dugout.
Listen, Otani hits insanely well. So being able to strike him out is like a huge deal. Listen, Trey's a good boy. Okay.
Trey's a good boy. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I saw that photo earlier,
It's
and then when you were
perfect.
talking about it, I'm like, I wonder if that's who we were talking
Oh,
about.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if you're okay, I still have two more baseball questions, if
Get
that's
into
okay.
it.
I mean,
Yep.
and these are also, well, I guess one's not really a question. Well, no, it kind of is. Okay, one, is Bieber related to Bieber?
I am not sure, to be honest with you. I don't think so. I think we would have heard more about that if he was.
I
I don't think
assume.
so.
I assume. It's just that's literally the only Bieber I've ever heard of. And then baseball starts happening, and I was like, Bieber, are they related?
I
And then
know.
I saw he was wearing a Bieber jersey, and I was like, clever. Okay. And finally, now I was recently informed that players get songs when they walk up to the bat.
Yeah.
Um, and that feels so gangster to me. I don't know how to handle it. So then my question for you is, what would be your walk-up song?
It's a great question, and I've thought about it so much. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, I guarantee you have.
Um, I mean, part of me feels like Whiplash by myself. I would like to walk
Oh,
out to my
sure.
own song. That would be
Of
nice.
course.
And I think that's the banger to do it. But if I'm not including myself,
Banger.
um, see, because it's one of those things where it's like, do you want to choose a song that you really like, or do you want to choose a song that's like a bit, or do you want to choose a song that's
Oh,
just like a pump up? You know what I mean? For example, Ernie
oh.
Clement has been walking out to shout, "Hey, hey," makes me love him more. I'm like, I don't know what the story is behind that choice. I fucking love it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's tough. Like, do you want just to bring a vibe?
There's part of me that's like Crazy Train. You know what I mean? All aboard! I mean, that would be pretty great.
That is badass.
Yeah.
I like, like
Come on.
having the fans do the I part as you're coming up, like that would. That
Crazy
would
Train might be
rile
the
me up.
choice.
Oh, I think you're right. I
What
had
would yours be?
oh, um, like would I take, and I can't believe this is how I'm wording it, one of my favorite songs of all time, which I can't believe I'm admitting this publicly. Um, would I take I'm on a Boat by Lonely Island and have it altered so it says I'm at bat?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
But I mean, there's just so many parts of that song that make me laugh so hard. I think for me, if I'm looking for a gangster feel,
Yeah.
it's gonna have to be Lose Yourself. If you think I don't want to come up to that, like, oh yeah, I don't know. I
That's a
was
great
I
choice.
was literally quoting Lose Yourself the other day to someone who doesn't know the song and was like, I don't understand what you're saying. And I was like, you had to
Another
be,
one that's come to mind for me, Enter Sandman, Metallica,
oh, okay. Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
You're off to Never, Never Land. I mean, that
Oh,
would hit.
I think the greatest choice is something with just a dirty bass. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like you want
totally.
just filth on that
Just
bass,
filthy.
just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like just dirty in there. I think that would be, I don't know what song that is.
I'm gonna just have to send a text to the band, to the boys. Hey guys, I've been talking to Christy, and we love
Yeah.
everything. We'd like to add a song with a filthy bass,
Yeah.
heavy
Yeah.
low end. That's what we like to say in the biz.
Hey,
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
But you could
basically
say
the
that to a music.
energy.
You could say filthy bait. You could say that to a musician, and they'd be like, "Okay."
And they'd get it, right?
Oh, they,
See?
yeah, yeah, yeah. They'd be like,
Yeah.
"This girl knows music." Yeah.
I don't know about that. I'd also probably willingly come out to Christina Aguilera's Dirty.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I could see that for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be. Or oh, Rihanna, bitch, better have my money.
Oh, it's a good one too.
Most Rihanna would work.
Yeah.
So I could, yeah.
I also could hear myself coming out to Child's Play by Drake
Oh, sure.
or Roman's Revenge by Nicki Minaj.
Okay. I I just sometimes I think something and I'm about to say it, and I so rarely have the gift of being able to stop myself before I say it because then I'm like, I'm gonna be embarrassed that
Mm.
this is gonna come out there. But this is just genuinely a thought I had. Hear me out. One of the greatest songs to ever have been created. We're Here for a Good Time by Trooper.
For all the money
Yeah, I
in the
know.
world, if you said, what is she, if you asked me, what is she going to say right now?
Yeah.
Never would have gone there. And you're not wrong. It's a great choice.
I just it's always been there my entire life of as far as like what a great tune.
Yeah.
Like it puts you in a good mood. It's a great message. They're right. The sun can't shine every day. We aren't here for a long time. So have
Yeah.
a good time. I heard it in the car earlier because I was listening to my iPod. That's not the point. The point is, I heard it earlier and it stuck in my mind of like, oh, this is a good one.
May I also add into the stew?
Yeah.
Raise a little hell, raise a little
Oh,
hell, raise a little hell. Great one,
yes. Yes. Oh, I like this energy. I like this energy.
right?
Um, oh God, I was just thinking of one. Um, oh, I would also accept Freedom by George Michael.
I think someone was using that for a while. I can't remember who. I mean, a lot
Okay.
of these songs that have been listed, by the way, I have seen over the years somebody
Of
use.
course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, it also it My song choice would be different if I was playing in a lady league versus if some chance that it's just like, oh my God, they saw me hit a ball and they were like, she's it. And suddenly I'm on like an MLB team and it's just me and a full sausage party. Um, my song choice would be different.
What would the Lady League song be versus the
Oh,
MLB song? Because I feel like what you've been saying is the MLB song, right?
yeah. I mean the lady one. I mean, that could be Trooper. Um, that it would probably be like a lighter, like it might be more of a bit. Like, am I changing? I'm on a boat to I'm up at bat. That was better. See, I'm workshopping that one. Would I make it like something funny or like something that would just like get attention? Sure. Cutesy, funny. Again, Trooper. Maybe that's when I get a bit sassy with a little like genie in a bottle. Oops, I did it again.
Yeah.
Something
But
like
then
that.
when you get under that
Oh
MLB
my
field,
God.
it's filthy bass.
Enrico Iglesias Hero.
I mean, you know how much I love Enrique
Of
Iglesias.
course.
I like it. That song is my pump up song.
Oh,
That's my
baby, I
pre-audition
like
song.
it.
The
Yeah.
way you move on the floor. That's my new answer.
See, that's gonna pump you up to get out there.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Hell
But
yeah.
yeah, if I'm like the only lady on a team of men, I'm either gonna have to go the filthiest bass that I've ever heard in my life, which I love that I can't think of a song with like just dripping in just gooey, ooh, dirty bass, like
Hmm.
the dirtiest bass, or because because I'm blanching on a team of just rock solid athletes, it would probably be the best to pick "Creep" by Radiohead.
Big plastic watering can. I'm just thinking now of like what are the worst songs? That would be a bum out, you
Oh,
know?
and I would think any sort of waltz or foxtrot.
Waltz or foxtrot.
I don't understand how we can hit record and we
Yep.
can talk about anything
Yep.
for the span of like 15, 20 minutes.
Yep.
And suddenly I say something proving I've aged 20 years
Yeah.
since we hit record. Like, they're not going to put an old timey like record player out there and you're not going to hear the of like they've put the needle on the record and you hear that hiss and you go and then all of a sudden it's like, some sort of old timey waltz.
I just don't think that in our entire relationship of 42 years, I just
Mhm.
think this might be the first time I've ever heard you say the word foxtrot.
I think this also might be the first time I've ever mentioned Trooper.
Yeah, I guess Trooper shocked me less ultimately.
Yeah, look, this this is how you keep a relationship going for as long as we have.
It is. There needs to still be discoveries.
Delightful surprises.
40 years in, there needs to still be things that you go, I didn't know that about you.
I like a filthy bass.
And I like a filthy mouth. I don't know why. I didn't have to say it. It was just right there. I've had one glass of wine and it was small. It was small. It was a 6 ounce, not a nine. That's a guess. I'm not measuring my fucking
I
wine, you know?
was gonna say, I'm like, how do you know? I've seen videos of like bartenders who are like, who can pour like with a blindfold on, who can pour the shot to like the exact amount. A lot of them get there. And I'll be honest, I'm impressed every time.
Yeah,
Every time I'm like, no kidding.
that's a skill.
It is. It is. And then
Some
it
could even
makes me
say,
laugh when it's the management that does it and they're way off.
oh, yeah, they're out of touch.
Yeah.
Undercover boss type situation, you know?
Yes.
I always love when I mean, this is what I was about to say. I always love when you watch Undercover Boss and like, how often am I watching Undercover Boss? More than I think I want to admit.
I've honestly never seen it. Like I get
Oh,
it,
well,
and I've
it's one of
seen
those,
clips, but
the concept, obviously.
yes, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think for me, the tough thing is when they find out, like, it's like, whatever. This guy, Mike, this is his third job, and you guys don't give him a full lunch break, and you don't pay for his food. And it's like a Popeyes or something. This is no shade to Popeyes. It's just an
of
example of what
course,
it could be. And then the
of
person's like, "Ooh,
course.
this is bad." And I'm like, "You should know that this was already happening. It shouldn't have taken this wild
Hmm.
reality show
Hmm.
to prove that to you.
Of course.
Just like it shouldn't have to take me hitting the streets saying, 'Hello, world, I'm Laura Nash and I love the Toronto Blue Jays.'" You know what I mean?
I just, again, I mean, I don't have to remind the dear people that this isn't live. Like we recorded this in advance.
It is
Uh,
how it is the system we tend to use. Yeah.
and just the fact that for us, which is fun because this make when we talk about stuff that hasn't happened for us yet, but it has happened for them, I feel
Yeah.
like this makes us like a little time machine. Um, but tomorrow's game six, is that correct?
Tomorrow is game 6.
Okay.
The Jays
So,
are up 3-2 in the series. If the
right.
Jays win tomorrow, it's over.
Yeah. When?
If they lose, we go to Saturday, we go to game 7.
Right.
But I can't be at game 7, but I
Right.
can be at game 6. So
Right. For the love of God, tag her.
thank
MLB.
you.
We ask so little.
We really do. But yeah, it's interesting because, listening back to this, as I sometimes do, I listen to our show because I like listening to our banter.
Of
Um,
course.
it's either going to be next week like, "Oh God, that's so cute," because then the next day they won the World Series,
Yep.
or it might not be that, but I don't want to think about that.
Oh, I have to think that it's gonna be positive, but
Yeah.
you know what they say, have a good time. The sun can't shine every day.
It's funny. I, I I don't normally like to give this peek behind the curtains,
Yeah.
but I take notes about where I want the ad breaks to go. And
Yeah.
I had just written one down,
Hmm.
which was you saying, "For the love of God, Tagger." But then you came back around with a funnier one. So I'm having to rewrite it and say, "No, no, that callback. That's the comedy beat we go out on." Um,
You know I love a callback.
oh, same, same. Speaking of long-term callbacks, what you drinking over there?
Oh, I'm doing a Pepsi slush today, trying to keep my wits about me because when we're done here, I have to go finish sewing a Halloween costume that my child is going to wear in approximately 13 hours.
Yeah, we got to get through this. We got to blow through this. She's got lots going on, folks. What am I drinking? Matua. I've had one glass. Guess
Oh,
what?
I like
As soon
that.
as we take a little breaky break, I'm going to refill my glass. I don't know
Mm.
why I'm out of my. It's World Series fever.
Yeah,
I've got the symptoms.
the
And
energy
listen,
is different. Yeah.
I don't think I can drink at the game tomorrow night because there's too much on the line. So this is
Oh,
this is part of the process for me. Anyway,
yeah.
listen, folks, we're talking about Catherine Carroll. I know nothing about this case, and if you don't, also have no fear. Christy's synopsis is right here. In January 1991, 19-year-old Greg Parsons discovered his mother stabbed to death in her home in St. John's, Newfoundland, in Canada. Despite a lack of evidence or a clear motive, police immediately believed that Greg had murdered his own mother. Greg maintained his innocence for years, even through a trial and several incidents of police harassment. Thanks to advancements in DNA technology, the real killer was finally discovered a decade later, and the killer's identity was a shock to everyone involved. Well, well,
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, this one I don't think gets a lot of action in the true crime space
Interesting.
because I don't think a lot of people have heard of it. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But I was also very excited to have an episode in Newfoundland.
Oh boy, we're going down to Newfoundland and Labrador. This isn't meant to be offensive. I love the Newfoundland accent.
Yes, of course.
I also kind of do a version of it as Halifax. It's not right. It's the East Coast accent, but I know.
Mm,
I say it with reverence is my point. Not everybody out there sounds like that, but we've all heard people in our lives that sound like that.
of course. So disclaimer, this episode will contain very brief mentions of sexual assault and suicide, so trigger warning for those who need it. Today's episode takes place in Canada, or more specifically, St. John's, Newfoundland, which is about 300 kilometers south of Bonavista, Newfoundland, where season 2, episode 8 of the TV series Severance was filmed. Bonavista was used as the fictional hometown of the character Harmony Coble, who is played by Patricia Arquette, an Academy Award winning actress best known for movies True Romance and Stigmata, the TV show Medium, and her 1995 marriage to Nicolas Cage. I know you knew that one was coming.
That one I felt.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Again, it's also finding a spot in the notes before things get serious.
Of course.
So it's a dance. Life's
Well,
a
it's
dance.
it's a
One is
foxtrot.
Thank you for a callback.
God, this is why the people keep coming back, you know?
Has to be. Has
Yeah.
to be.
Sorry.
Oh, can't be for my baseball questions. Or maybe it will be. Who knows?
I loved them.
There have to be people out there who are like, I also didn't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? So around 10 p.m. on January 2nd, 1991, 19-year-old Greg Parsons called 911 begging them to send police to his mother's house at 16 James Place in St. John's. Greg was panicked and said he found his mother in the bathroom and there was blood everywhere. According to a CBC W5 investigation, the 911 operator radioed the police, gave them the address, and then said, quote, a lady down in the bathroom. Apparently, it could be quite ugly. When police arrived, they discovered 45-year-old Catherine Carroll lying on the bathroom floor in a pool of blood. She was partially dressed, and according to the autopsy report, she had been stabbed and slashed 53 times. There was no sign of sexual assault, so the motive was unknown. Time of death was estimated to be around 2 or 3 a.m., or even as late as 6 a.m. on January 1st. Sadly, very little is publicly known about Catherine's life prior to her death. I only know that she was divorced and that she lived alone. Following her divorce, Catherine struggled as a single parent, but Greg said that Catherine was always trying to better herself and that she had done the best that she could. Greg described his mother as a go-getter who loved to laugh and have a good time. Shortly after police arrived on scene, they questioned Greg, who police felt wasn't acting in the way they expected. I guess they just assumed he would be hysterical and crying, but instead he was quiet and still and had a lot of difficulty speaking. I'm not a professional, but I assume he was probably in shock. The 911 call is heart-wrenching to hear. He is absolutely hysterical in that call, and it is tough to listen to, especially when you realize he was 19. Greg said he last spoke to Catherine on New Year's Eve when he called her about 5 minutes after midnight. They wished each other a happy new year, said I love you, and the call was ended. When Greg called his mother the next day, she didn't answer, which is very unusual because they spoke on the phone daily. Greg tried again the following day, calling Catherine multiple times throughout the day. When he still didn't get an answer, he went over to her house around 10 p.m. Greg said the front door was locked and that he could see from the window that the light was on in the upstairs bathroom. Greg tried his key in the lock, but it didn't work, so he entered through a window at the front of the house. Greg said Catherine's dog was whining and going crazy when he got inside. The dog led Greg to the second floor bathroom. The door was locked, so Greg banged on it, got no response. Greg said the doorknob was one of those cheap plastic ones that you just push in to lock. So he hit the doorknob as hard as he could and managed to get the door open. He said that's when he noticed blood all over the walls and floor. During an interview with W5 on CBC, Greg said, quote, "There was blood everywhere. I've never stopped seeing it." Police did a grid search of Catherine's property looking for the murder weapon, but they found nothing. Police noted some of the blood on the bathroom floor had been diluted with water, and they noticed an empty wrapper from a bar of soap on the edge of the bathtub, which suggests the killer may have had a shower before leaving the scene. The front door of the house was locked at the doorknob and with a deadbolt. There was no sign of forced entry. The window that Greg used to enter the house didn't appear to have been forced open prior to Greg coming in. There was a small window in the basement, but investigators immediately decided it was too small for anyone to get through, so they immediately believed the killer was likely someone who knew Catherine and had access to the house. Inside the washing machine in the basement, police found a towel with some blood on it. The towel matched the ones that were up in the bathroom. In the kitchen, they noticed that a serrated knife was missing from a set in the drawer. However, the medical examiner could not conclusively determine if that missing knife was officially the murder weapon or not. Now, homicides in Newfoundland were rare at the time. According to Statistics Canada, in 1990, there were 657 homicides in Canada, which at the time had a population of roughly 27 million. Of those 657 murders, zero took place in St. John's. Now, I'm not saying murders never happen in St. John's. I mean, Statistics Canada shows there were 754 homicides in the country in 1991. Three were in St. John's. And in 1992, there were 734 murders in the country, and only one of those took place in St. John's. So while I can't say murders never happen there, they are incredibly rare. So local police were pressured to solve Catherine Carroll's case to help ease the public's concern that a killer was walking around. Police spoke with Greg to ask his whereabouts on New Year's Eve. He said he spent the night with his girlfriend, Tina, and Tina's father dropped Greg off at home at 4 a.m. At the time, Greg had his own place miles from his mother's house. Greg was interviewed for hours. He said despite living in different homes, he spoke to his mother every day. He saw her often. She allowed Greg and his friends to hang out at her house, including jam sessions in the basement and even allowing them to drink before they were the legal age of 19. Greg said his mother was lonely, so she liked having them around, and she would often sit and listen to their band practice. Investigators were unable to determine any motive that Greg might have to harm his mother, and with no evidence against him, they moved on to two other possible suspects. One was Catherine's ex-husband, because they had gone through a very ugly divorce. But according to police, the ex had a solid alibi. The other possible suspect was a man who Catherine was having a bitter legal dispute with over a car accident. However, it was determined that the man was out of the province at the time of Catherine's death. So at this point, the police are being pressured to solve the case, but they didn't have a clear motive or a potential suspect. Then one of Catherine's neighbors, a woman named Cindy Green, came forward to say that Catherine and Greg had a tumultuous relationship and that Catherine had said on multiple occasions she was afraid of her own son. When police spoke with other friends of Catherine's, they also mentioned things between Catherine and Greg weren't always great. Brian Doyle, Greg's best friend since they were 9 years old, told police they often hung out as a group at Catherine's house. He claimed to have witnessed times when Greg would shove Catherine around and throw beer cans at her. Brian then gave police a cassette tape with a song that Greg's band had recorded during a jam session. The song on the tape was called Kill Your Parents. The chorus features the repeating lines of kill your parents, ha 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 ha. Yeah, they were
That's
teenagers.
yeah.
Um, So now police are starting to believe that they finally discovered the motive and that Greg was the killer. And since Catherine's death took place sometime between 2 and 6 a.m., and Greg did not have an alibi between 4 and 6, they believed after being dropped off at home at 4, Greg went to his mother's house, let himself in with his key, killed her, took a shower, and left. Greg's house was searched, and police found a shoe with a very small drop of blood on it. Well, at first they were like, "Ooh, that could be blood." They had it tested; it was blood. Um, and so they immediately were like, "Well, obviously, we've got him." So Greg is brought in for a second interview, and this time police were, I can't think of a better word than intense. They shouted at him. They were screaming. They said things like, and I quote, "What kind of sick bastard would rape and murder their own mother?" To be clear, at the time, police were well aware there were no signs of sexual assault in this crime. I don't know if they were just trying to say it to get a reaction out of him, but it felt like an odd choice. Police continued to push for a confession, but Greg refused, saying he was innocent. Greg offered to take a polygraph, which the police later said that he failed. DNA technology at the time was still relatively new, so the lab was unable to conclusively match the DNA found at the scene to Greg or match the blood drop on the shoe to Catherine. However, investigators believed that the Kill Your Parents song was the only physical evidence that they would need. So on January 10th, just 8 days after Catherine's death, Greg Parsons was officially arrested for murder. In September 1993, Greg went on trial for the first-degree murder of his mother, Catherine Carroll. The prosecution painted Greg as evil and claimed that Catherine was afraid of him. 45 witnesses took the stand to say Greg and Catherine didn't get along. To be clear, there was absolutely zero physical evidence linking Greg to the crime. The entire prosecution, their case was based on hearsay and rumors. Greg testified and spoke about his troubled childhood, saying his mother suffered from mental health issues and problems with addiction, which caused Greg to start working at a very young age to be able to afford food. In his teens, he ended up moving out, but he still checked on his mother daily with phone calls and multiple times a week with visits. But despite Greg's testimony, the witness statements from Catherine's friends and acquaintances, as well as that Kill Your Parents song, were pretty damning. To be clear, regarding the song, Greg was not the singer. I believe he was the drummer in the band, but I could be wrong. But as far as the lyrics go, the entire band wrote the song together. They all contributed to the lyrics. Um, so the angry lyrics weren't specifically Greg's idea. So the song wasn't indicative of that Greg had it out for his mother. Greg said the song was simply trash metal. After 5 months, the trial came to an end. The jury deliberated for 6 days, and while there was no physical evidence tying Greg to the crime, the witness statements and the cassette tape were damning enough that Greg was found guilty on the lesser charge of second-degree murder, which is an automatic life sentence. When the verdict was read, the courtroom absolutely erupted. 20 police officers stormed the room to remove Greg from the building. Days later, Greg's lawyer, Robert Simmons, launched an appeal claiming that Greg did not receive a fair trial and that the police investigation was not impartial. Prior to Greg taking a polygraph, the interviewing officers riled Greg up, screaming horrific things at him and getting him upset before immediately hooking him up to the machine. Robert also pointed out all the stories claiming that Catherine was afraid of Greg. Simply hearsay. Robert said police were so eager to close the case that they only focused on finding evidence to prove Greg was the killer, as opposed to looking for evidence of what really happened. A judge granted the appeal, and Greg was released from prison after serving roughly 2 months. He was allowed to remain on the outside until a new trial, but he was required to sign in at the police station every single day for nearly 4 years.
Wow.
To this day, Greg still has nightmares about forgetting to sign in and being sent back to prison.
Ugh.
While awaiting the new trial, Greg made the most of his life as a free man. He went back to school and got an honors business diploma. He married his girlfriend, Tina, who had been by his side every step of the way. And honestly, their love is incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
They met at a Burger King when Greg was 16 and Tina was 19. Greg said he never imagined that she would ever be interested in someone like him. Well, they started dating a few years later, which was shortly before Catherine's death. Tina never once wavered on Greg's innocence. And from the best I can tell, they are still married to this day.
Wow.
Around 1996, they had a son named Zachary. I believe they've had more children since then, but they are incredibly private people, so I didn't bother looking into it further, and I'm just going to respect that. So Greg opened Better Bodies Gym um, shortly after they had their son. Um, and he was just simply trying to live his life, but the local police made sure that Greg would never forget that he had been convicted of murder. Greg said police cruisers would park outside his gym with their headlights shining through the windows. They harassed him. They would constantly yell at him when they saw him in the street. And once they caught him smoking a joint outside the gym, they sicked a police dog on him and like badly injured his legs.
Oh
Uh, sh-
God.
yeah, shortly before Greg's second trial was set to begin in 1998, investigators heard about a new type of DNA testing involving mitochondrial DNA, which is much more sensitive than the previous testing, and it was able to determine DNA from a much smaller sample, even when the quality was poor. Items from the scene were sent to be retested, and two DNA contributors were found. One was female, which came back as a match to Catherine Carroll. The other was male, which was not a match to Greg Parsons. And I'll mention now, because I don't believe it's in my notes, the blood droplet on his shoe was not a match to Catherine. Apparently, he had gotten into some sort of fight with someone at some point, and the other guy got punched in the nose, and we can only assume the blood,
Right.
fell. So Greg was fully exonerated. The Crown issued a formal apology, um, and Greg later received a $1.3 million settlement from the provincial government for his wrongful conviction. And while the general public seemed to believe that justice had been served, the local police started a new investigation, this time led by Sergeant Robert Johnston. When Robert looked at the file, the first thing he noticed was the original investigators stated there was absolutely no way someone could fit through that basement window. It was too small. So Robert immediately went to the house, and even though he was 6'2", 190 pounds, he was able to get through that basement window in less than a minute. Robert then learned that Greg and his friends used to go in and out of that window all the time, sometimes using it to get in the house at late hours, or simply using it to pass through band equipment or beer. Greg said all the kids in the neighborhood knew how to pop open those kind of windows in case they ever got locked out. So now they knew it was possible to enter the house through that window. Robert interviewed everyone who lived on James Place, as well as anyone associated with Catherine and anyone who lived in the area who'd ever been involved in a serious crime. Well, this led to two new suspects who hadn't even been looked at in the original investigation. First, there was a guy named Mark Hanlon who had a history of drug abuse and had been arrested after breaking into another house on James Place and wiping a piece of beef on the walls.
Wasteful.
Yeah. Now, he supposedly got the beef from the fridge inside the house before going full Picasso with it. I don't know why he did it. Maybe he was trying to intimidate someone by making them think it was human blood. I really honestly don't know.
Yeah.
The second suspect was a man named Frank Brody, who had a criminal record, including a time when he broke into another house on James Place and sexually assaulted an elderly woman. And while Frank also personally knew Catherine Carroll, he also previously dated Cindy Green, Catherine's neighbor, who was the first person to come forward with claims that Catherine was afraid of Greg. So now police start wondering if maybe Cindy lied to the police to protect Frank, but both Frank Brody and Mark Hanlon were given DNA tests, and neither was a match to the male DNA found at the crime scene. By 2001, investigators had eliminated 150 people through DNA testing, and by that point, they were running out of suspects and the case had gone cold. Then, out of nowhere, Robert Johnston received an anonymous phone call suggesting he take a closer look at Brian Doyle regarding the murder of Catherine Carroll. As a reminder, Brian Doyle was not only Greg's childhood best friend, who attended both Catherine's funeral and Greg's wedding, but Brian Doyle was also the person who gave police that cassette tape with the song Kill Your Parents. Apparently, Brian Doyle was on a list of people involved in the case who had yet to be interviewed or DNA tested. But when Robert went looking for Brian, he was gone.
Mm.
According to parole documents, Brian Doyle stole money from a fellow drug dealer and skipped town in 1995. He was arrested a few years later after being caught with a stolen car in New Mexico. He was sent back to Canada, and at the time of the anonymous tip, Brian was living in Ontario, just outside of Toronto.
Hmm.
So Robert couldn't easily travel 3,000 kilometers west and demand a DNA sample, so instead, he approached Brian Doyle's brother. After explaining the situation, the brother agreed to give a DNA sample, and it came back as a partial match to the unknown male found at the crime scene. Robert then contacted authorities in Toronto and had them do surveillance on Brian Doyle. After a few days, the officers were able to collect discarded cigarettes, which were sent to a lab and officially came back as a match to the unknown male. Brian Doyle had not only killed his best friend's mother, but he also supplied evidence that helped send Greg to prison for it. At the time of the murder, Brian lived just 2 doors down from Catherine.
Oof.
In June 2001, Brian Doyle was arrested and transferred to St. John's, where he was questioned regarding Catherine's murder. He immediately asked investigators what evidence they had, and they bluntly told him, well, they have DNA that links him to the scene. Realizing there's not many places you can go from there, Brian then fully confessed to the crime. He also agreed to go with police to the crime scene and do a walkabout to take them through the crime step by step. Brian admitted he entered the house through the basement window, cutting his hand. He grabbed a nearby towel, wiped the blood on it, and tossed it in the washing machine. Catherine's dog then approached him, so he briefly played with the dog, then made his way upstairs where he grabbed a knife from a kitchen drawer. Brian then went to the second level of the home, where he took off all his clothes and entered Catherine's bedroom. Catherine woke up, asked Brian why he was there, and told him to leave. Catherine went to the bathroom, so Brian followed her and repeatedly stabbed her until he believed she was dead. Brian then said he stepped over the body to have a shower, then got dressed and left the house through the basement window. Once outside, Brian admitted he walked about 2 minutes down the road to a fence just outside an impound lot, and he tossed the knife over the fence and went home. While Brian was on this walkabout with police, which was being recorded, they checked the impound lot just past the fence. And wouldn't you know, that's exactly where the murder weapon was. I guess the original investigators only searched Catherine's property for the weapon. They didn't bother to, I don't know, search the rest of the neighborhood.
That's
The,
crazy.
the fact that the weapon was still there a decade later is insane. On January 8th, 2001, Brian Doyle was officially charged with first-degree murder. According to Greg's wife, Tina, the prosecution said they were concerned they wouldn't be able to get a conviction, so Brian was offered a plea deal. In exchange for Brian pleading guilty, the charges would be reduced to second-degree murder and he would avoid a trial entirely. Brian pleaded guilty and was given an automatic life sentence. But that means because it's second-degree murder, he is eligible for parole as of like 10 years. Um, a parole board has to approve it, of course, but it's not automatically he would get out. But if he had been charged with first degree murder, the minimum sentence before being eligible for parole is 25 years. So the plea deal was kind of a slap in the face for Greg and his family. Now, I have a lot of questions about this, mainly how the prosecution could honestly say they were worried about a conviction. They had a full confession, DNA evidence that Brian was at the scene of the crime, and the murder weapon, which was found right where Brian said it would be. I know that I'm not a lawyer, but how is that not kind of a slam dunk? Especially when they previously got a conviction with zero evidence. But maybe that's the reason they were concerned, because the defense would be like, well, last time it was wrongful conviction, and that would help cast some doubt. I don't know. The point is, Greg's trial was 5 months long, and he was on the news every single day with his picture, his face, calling him a murderer, all of the above. Brian Doyle was in and out of court within a few days, and most locals didn't even realize a second arrest had ever been made in the case. Tina believes the prosecution wanted to keep the case quiet because they didn't want to remind the public that they had initially convicted the wrong man.
Mm.
Greg Parsons has since become a firefighter and has been for over 20 years.
Wow.
In 2022, he made lieutenant at the very same firehouse where his son Zachary also works as a firefighter.
Cute.
Zachary said his parents made sure that Greg's conviction never defined his childhood. Since Brian's conviction, Greg has made it his mission to ensure that Brian will remain behind bars for the rest of his life. Every time that Brian is eligible for parole, Greg is ready with his victim impact statement and evidence proving why he believes that Brian should never be released. Greg said he will not stop fighting to keep Brian Doyle incarcerated. Understanding Greg's mission, Robert Johnston gave Greg all the information he had on the case in 2015, included in that information was a video file which contained a Mr. Big sting operation the police had done on Brian Doyle back in June 2001, just 2 days before his arrest. A Mr. Big sting is an undercover operation that involves police officers posing as members of a criminal organization with the intent to trick a suspect into confessing to a serious crime. This specific type of sting was first used by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in British Columbia in 1965. It's really only used mostly in Canada and Australia. It is prohibited in so many countries, including the United States, because, it's essentially entrapment.
Yeah.
But we don't have time to get into the morality of that today. That's not what this is. So, in the lead up to this video, Brian Doyle met a man that he believed was a black market dealer who was bringing drugs and various other illegal items and selling them in the parking lot where Brian worked. In reality, the dealer was an undercover police officer named Brian Adams. No, not the singer, although it'd be amazing if he took a brief pause from his music career to work as an undercover cop. God, I bet he'd get some good song material out of that.
Yeah.
Um, so Brian Doyle gets to know this fake black market dealer, and eventually Brian gets bold enough to suggest Maybe he should be the middleman between the dealer and Brian's coworkers because, Brian wants a piece of the action. Soon the dealer is telling Brian he's going through a really messy divorce and his wife's trying to take all his money. Well, Brian very quickly volunteers to kill the dealer's wife for $20,000. The dealer then says they have to ask his boss about it because any murders in their association have to be run past the boss first. And honestly, I like the idea that even in criminal organizations, there are rules. You can't do a murder unless you ask the big guy. It's
Yeah.
just how it goes. So Brian Doyle agrees to meet the boss and suggests he just maybe should outright join their organization. The dealer warns that they are very exclusive, and the only way you're getting in is if you prove you're ruthless. Well, Brian Doyle agrees. So they set up a meeting at a hotel where Brian meets the head of this criminal organization, a man who goes by the name Mr. Big. Yeah, in a Mr. Big sting operation, they literally called the undercover cop Mr. Big. It's wild. I let it go. Oh, God, maybe they were fans of Sex and the City. I don't know. Was Sex and the City on in 2001?
Yeah,
Thank you
it
very
was.
much. Well, I like that. I knew you would know.
Yep.
So while Brian Doyle didn't know that Mr. Big was really an undercover cop, he also didn't know the entire meeting was recorded. When they talked about the potential murder of the dealer's estranged wife, Mr. Big asked Brian Doyle how he'd handle it. Brian said, simple. He'd earn the woman's trust, get her into bed, and then strangle her.
Jesus.
The confidence to believe that he could easily get any woman into bed is astounding. But okay. Brian then said before the murder, he would walk around the woman's neighborhood, see if he could pick something up with neighbors' fingerprints on it. He would then leave that item at the scene of the crime, which he believes would keep the cops busy for at least a couple of months. I can't believe
What are you
he
picking up,
wasn't.
man? What are
I
you doing?
know.
What are
I
you
can't.
gonna go through somebody's trash? What are you
I.
talking about?
It's just the fact that this guy evaded police for a decade, huh? Loves her. He got lucky there. He got
Well, he did a
lucky
few
there.
things right. Jesus.
Yeah. Mr. Big then said before he could trust Brian Doyle with a murder, he needed to know that Brian was capable of it. Brian outright said, well, it wouldn't be his first murder. Brian said he was attending a New Year's Eve party in 1991 when he left around 1 or 2 a.m. to go to the house belonging to his friend's mother. He said he even wore a pair of shoes belonging to someone else at the party so it could never be traced back to him. Then he went to the house, killed her, and returned to the party. So if this is true, that he purposely wore someone else's shoes to the crime scene, that means he absolutely planned this crime ahead of time, meaning it was premeditated and absolutely not second-degree murder.
Yes.
Because second-degree murder means it wasn't planned. But of course, this tape was never brought up in court when Brian was offered the deal. When Brian spoke to Mr. Big about the murder, he told him he got naked and went into Catherine's bedroom, waking her up. And when Catherine told him to leave, Brian said he followed her to the bathroom, and his quote was, just kept stabbing her until she died.
Jesus Christ.
The monster outright bragged about the sheer amount of blood that was everywhere, and then he mimicked the sound of Catherine's last breath. The video of it is not a great watch. He showed absolutely no remorse for what he had done, saying he just kept cutting until she was dead.
Good Lord.
A quote from the tape, Brian said, quote, I felt untouchable. I felt like I can do anything I want, and no one can stop me. When Mr. Big asked if there was anything about the murder that bothered him, Brian said, quote, "The only thing that bothers me is that you know." Mr.
Well,
Big then asked Brian how he felt after the murder. Couldn't love it more that he's trying to, like, let's get you some therapy. Let's talk about your feelings. Brian said he felt nothing. Mr. Big then asked how he felt when Greg Parsons took the fall for the murder. Brian said, "I felt fucking great." Again, this was your childhood best friend. Um, Best friends since they were kids. Brian Doyle was the last person to sign the guest book at Greg and Tina's wedding.
oof.
And beside his signature in the guest book, he wrote, "Hi, hi, hi, bye, bye." Nobody
Not
else
even not even
wrote,
charming.
yeah, nobody else wrote anything beside it. It just, I don't know. Dick.
Creepy.
Anyway, Brian Doyle spent his first 7 years in prison at a maximum security facility before being transferred to a minimum security facility in British Columbia. In April 2020, Brian Doyle applied for parole. Now, up to this point, he had given a variety of reasons as to why he murdered Catherine Carroll, but his reasons were never consistent. Sometimes he claimed he wanted to free Greg from his allegedly abusive mother, even though there was no evidence whatsoever that Catherine was ever abusive. Then sometimes he said his life was controlled by drugs and alcohol, and he wasn't even sober at the time of the crime. To that I say, if he was high or drunk or some combination of the two, how did he have the forethought to wear a different pair of shoes to the crime scene and take all of his clothes off and shower to avoid having blood on him before he left?
Yeah.
At one point, Brian claimed he'd murdered Catherine simply because he hated Greg so much. He said they were best friends when they were children, but in the last year or two before the murder, Greg had started to act like some sort of big shot. Part of me wonders if it simply comes down to Greg was in the band, Brian was not. But in 2020, when Brian was trying to get paroled, he told the board the real reason he murdered Catherine was because they'd been in a secret on again, off again relationship. Brian was 18 or 19 at the time of Catherine's death. Catherine was 45. So it's unlikely that they were in a consensual, intimate relationship, but not impossible. Greg says he absolutely does not believe that there was a relationship, but he did also suggest that Catherine was lonely, so maybe a relationship isn't completely unbelievable. But if they were in a relationship, then why would Brian murder Catherine? Well, according to Brian, because she turned him down for sex that night. Have we heard of countless men murdering women because they turned them down? Yes. But if Brian really went to the house for sex that night, why'd he get the knife before he went upstairs?
Yeah.
He got the knife before he ever got naked. If she turned him down and he was so in a rage he was going to kill her, he'd have to go back downstairs and get it. He already had it. So then to
Yeah.
me, he was planning violence the moment he entered that home. It's almost like she had turned him down previously and told him this is never happening again. And then he broke in and was like, "Well, I'm going to show her." That makes sense to me
Yeah.
as far as a motive goes. Um, but somehow, after confessing that the murder was sexually motivated, Brian Doyle was granted day parole. I assume because the parole board just needed Brian to clearly admit to what he had done and why, but I don't know for sure. The day parole came with a long list of conditions. He had to abstain from drugs and alcohol. He had to notify his parole officer immediately of any sexual or non sexual relationships, regardless of gender. He was not allowed any direct or indirect contact with the victim's family. He was required to attend a treatment program for sexual deviancy, violence, childhood trauma, and reintegration challenges. And he was not able to enter the province of Newfoundland and Labrador without written permission from his parole supervisor. Less than a year after his parole, it was revoked due to his failure to immediately report a romantic relationship. There were also comments that Brian Doyle had concerning online activity at an internet chat site, and he was caught with a bottle of alcohol. All three of those things violate his parole conditions. Brian Doyle was given 3 months of day parole in August 2022 for the purposes of attending a treatment program. From the sounds of it, that parole ended up being extended into 2023. But in August 2024, it was determined that Brian had been fired from his job for sexually inappropriate behavior towards a female coworker. Brian's parole officer learned that Brian had been given a warning from his employer about similar behavior just 3 months prior to his termination, but he hadn't mentioned it to his parole supervisor. Now, I don't know the details of this inappropriate behavior, but Brian claims it was just a misunderstanding. He said the young female may have inadvertently seen a shirtless photo of Brian on his phone, and he truly believed the material he showed the female was harmless because she didn't seem upset at the time.
Oh, God.
Brian Doyle suggested the female complain to their boss simply because she had a vendetta against him. Good to know he can still take accountability for his own actions. In October 2024, Brian Doyle attempted to take his own life, saying he was upset he had to share a room at the group home. He spent several days on life support, but eventually made a full recovery. Brian Doyle was in a romantic relationship which was said to have issues or challenges that Brian did not report to his parole supervisor. I don't know what those issues were.
Yeah.
Brian's partner declined to speak publicly about it, but I assume the issues were violent to some degree if the parole supervisor found them to be concerning. When asked why he didn't mention the issues to his parole supervisor, Brian Doyle said he felt the issues were private matters. He then said he's never raised his hand or his voice to anyone in 30 years. And that's great, bud. I'm honestly glad if you genuinely changed. But what do you want? A fucking medal? You brutally killed a woman, seemingly because she turned you down for sex. You showed no remorse for the crime. You were still bragging about it 10 years later, and you let someone else take the fall. You're a piece of shit, Brian. You don't get to live your own life for the rest of your life. You have to deal with telling a parole supervisor intimate secrets. Fucking deal with it, sir. I don't even mean sir. He doesn't get to be called sir.
No.
Brian Doyle's parole was revoked most recently in December 2024. In February 2025, the Parole Board of Canada held a hearing to determine whether they were going to uphold the decision. At the time, Brian was 54 years old. According to the Telegram, the board stated that Brian had a long history of outright lying and lying by omission. They pointed out that Brian had presented himself as a grieving family friend, and he let his former friend be convicted and jailed for a crime that Brian had committed. And while he did apologize to Catherine's family, he never outright apologized to Greg for all the harm he had been caused. The parole board stated they found similarities between Brian's current issues and those that influenced him to stab Catherine Carroll. I would like more details, but unfortunately, there aren't any. Whatever it is, they're the ones that he said were intimate, private things he shouldn't have to talk about. But if there are similarities between that and the murder he committed, maybe you should have to tell people about it. In the end, the board decided to uphold their decision to revoke Brian Doyle's day parole. So, from the best I can tell, as of this record, Brian Doyle remains in prison. Reporting for True Crime and Cocktails, I'm Christy Oxborrow.
What a wild ride. I mean, we also know how desperately easy it can be to get out of prison. So the fact that he actually got put back in the end does speak to what a POS he is, because that's not easy to pull off. Um, Listen, let's hit the can, grab a drink, and we'll be back to discuss more about the Catherine Carroll case on this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. 2 on 3. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're, of course, discussing the Catherine Carroll case. What a wild ride. What a wild ride. I mean, right from the beginning, just out of the gate, Patricia Arquette was married to Nicolas Cage. Yes, she was. She was.
I knew the moment I mentioned Severance, I saw like you go from like note taking to, huh?
Oh, yeah. I
This
was like, here
is
we
this is
go.
this is leading somewhere because
This
Nicolas
is
Cage
it.
didn't do anything else in Newfoundland. I tried.
Yeah.
If he did, it
Oh,
wasn't anything noteworthy enough to put it on the internet.
well, yeah, again, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But listen, I think it was
Yeah,
great. You got there very easily.
I did. Yeah.
Um, okay. So many things here. I'll start at the beginning because I really do want to spend some time on Brian. Um, One thing I thought was interesting was Greg said the door was locked, but his key didn't work. So he had to go in through a window.
Yeah.
That's not helping, bud. You know what I mean? What do you mean your key didn't work?
Yeah. I don't like it.
Now, listen, obviously he was innocent. I'm not suggesting he's not, but it was just one of those details when you hear it in retrospect and you know the person is innocent, it's like, oh, that was an unfortunate coincidence because that makes you look oddly guilty too. Like, if you had a key, why wouldn't you go in through the front door, right?
Right?
Um, so many things. The towel found in the washing machine, the missing knife, the evidence of the shower before leaving. I mean, I have so many comments about motive. I don't fully buy his alleged motive. I just have a lot of unanswered questions, which I'll get to in a second. Come here, Bean. Come here. Sorry. She's a single mom who works too hard, who loves her dog and never stops. Okay. So many things here. Now that I'm going back through these notes. All right.
Hmm.
No evidence against Greg other than the people who, you know, brought forward things. For example, um, it was Brian who also said that he saw Greg shove Catherine and throw beer cans at her,
Correct.
which I wrote down and I was like, God, again, that's not great, bud. Like I was like, if even if you were innocent, like that's not great behavior. But now it's like that probably absolutely didn't happen.
Correct.
The Kill Your Parents song, the fact that the authorities like latched onto that so hard.
I
Not that
know.
I mean, it just doesn't like, well, it made me think myself, like, God, I hope nobody I've dated turns up dead because then they're going to come to me about a little tune called Cool Story, bro. Which again, I'm not actually wishing death on anyone. It's a turn of phrase. It's,
Of
you
course.
know, again, the thesis of that song is what's the meanest thing I could say to somebody? That was the idea. But it makes you think again if we're being held up because of our art. That's scary. Um, like as evidence of you doing a crime, you know?
Of course. I feel like they just literally had nothing else and they were like, we've got to get something. And then they were like, this is it.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's like, I mean, it was also such a terrible song.
Well, they were also kids. Like kids, a
Yeah.
teenage rock band writing "Kill Your Parents" is like pretty benign. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels like I'll say it derivative. Um, the fact also that we know now that Greg was innocent and was a 19-year-old boy, and the police were like, what kind of sick bastard would rape and kill his mother is so
Right?
twisted and awful. It's awful that he had to go through that, especially when rape
100%.
wasn't even a part of the crime, which what they
Yep.
knew. I
Yep.
understand they were just trying to manipulate him, but like, imagine now, like that poor man. Like as a 19-year-old, he not only had to find his mother dead,
Yep.
but then also had to go through that. Horrifying. The fact that they had 45 witnesses saying that they didn't get along, it makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, who will come out of the woodwork if need be for anything? Like,
Oh,
again,
yeah.
who's coming through? Who's coming out of the work? Again, somebody I dated shows up dead. Good God, there's going to be people that are like, yeah, she can't stand that guy, but that doesn't mean I killed him.
Well, and think of the exes. They're gonna
Oh my God.
drag out, and the exes are gonna be like, she's a crazy bitch.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
that's what men do.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's not great.
It's not good. It's not good. The reveal, of course, that Catherine had struggled with mental illness. This had, of course, caused Greg to have to start working at a young age. I also am feeling like that's why I think you alluded to that. That's kind of why he also moved out. Um,
Right.
it's just so sad to me. Like it feels like I feel like he genuinely cared about her. The fact that he called her every day, that when she didn't answer, he checked on her. Like it feels very much like she was struggling. He was really like present for her. He was like kind of a consistent thing, a consistent person in her life. And like how tragic. My God, this poor woman and poor family. 5 month trial is insane, especially now that we know that he was wrongfully convicted.
100%.
Like it's so scary when you think about that. It's like, how could you talk about something incorrectly for 5 months? Um,
Especially when the only thing you're going off of is a song.
yeah, and to the point of his lawyer, like, yeah, you got 45 witnesses saying, oh yeah, they didn't get along. That is hearsay. It's
Yeah.
it's it's like you don't know what's going on inside of anybody's heads. You can't prove that just because you saw them in an argument or something that means that, well, he for sure murdered her. My God. Um, I agree. The love story between Greg and Tina, inspirational, beautiful. My goodness, the fact that just the fact that they met in the Burger King, you know what I mean? That's nice.
I know. It's such a classic teenage thing, and I quite like it.
I do too. I wouldn't hate to meet someone in a Burger King. I
I
like their
think,
fries. Their fries have gotten better. It's not McDonald's, but they're decent.
again, I have to maybe revisit. I haven't been there easily in the last decade.
Give it a go.
I
Give it a
should.
go. Um, yeah, the fact that it's like all the kids in the neighborhood knew how to pop open that window, the fact that they hadn't really fully questioned a bunch of people in the neighborhood, like this is
Yep.
so classic. Things we hear on this show, the way that cases get bungled. Um, you know, the connections too, the fact that one of these other suspects, Frank Brody, who broke into another house on the street, that he dated the woman who was one of the people accusing Greg of not getting along with his mom, right? Like it feels like again, what a terrible coincidence.
Right?
That then it looks like it's like, well, nope, here's more proof that Greg's guilty. It's like, but he really isn't. Like it's wild to me how many turns this takes where it's like, yeah, that again, damning, even though it wasn't true. Every time you said Brian Doyle, all I could think of was Brian Doyle Murray, Bill Murray's
Ah,
brother,
yep.
every single time.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, Brian giving the police that tape that became their like key piece of evidence, ridiculous. Uh, yeah, then early on in that, I just wrote down what was his motive. So we'll get to that in a second, obviously. The fact that he admitted to everything after the DNA evidence, 10 years later, the knife is still where he left it. To your point, my God, they didn't want to like at all search off
Just
her
look around.
property like a couple feet. Not even it's literally just boop. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Again, I understand that there was a settlement that Greg was given. I think he deserves more, honestly. Like this is a horrific, absolutely poorly investigated case, no matter how you
Yeah.
slice it.
And the fact that he is still to this day, like 30 years later, having like trauma from it.
I'm sure he is.
So it's like, oh yeah, he didn't get enough.
No, he deserves more. Then I wrote down one of my favorite things you've ever said, kind of a slam dunk.
That was, and you're gonna love how I justify it. Didn't have to justify it, but
Don't.
to me, that's like how lawyers talk. Is it? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, I loved it.
It is on TV.
Yep.
Actually, I think it's more the cops who are like, it's a slam dunk. And then the lawyer's like, oh, legally speaking, like it's like I understand it's not. I'm more of a hothead cop than I am a lawyer.
Listen, I think you can pull off both roles. Um, if I may, psychologist hat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that Greg became a firefighter and
Yeah.
worked as a firefighter for as long as he did because psychologist hat, he couldn't save his mother,
So he's going to spend the rest of his life saving
saving
other
other
people.
people. Feels pretty black and white.
Yeah.
Doesn't take a psychologist hat to get there, you know? Now, you brought up the Mr. Big Sting operation. We talked about these before. Not this one, obviously, but remember, this is
Hmm.
they
Yep.
all the cases blur. Remember?
Yep. There was another small Canadian one. Yeah.
There was another Canadian one, and it was the Mr. Big case, and we talked about it like it was like, this is crazy. We can't believe they're doing this. How did this person fall for this? This is another example where it's like, at no point did Brian think this situation feels a little unbelievable to be true.
Yep.
This line of questioning feels a little bit invasive and odd for like a mafia type. Like, I just can't believe that people are falling for these. His name
Hmm.
was Brian Adams. I mean, this is at a time when Brian Adams was very
But
famous.
to be fair, though, that was his real name. Brian Adams was the officer's real name.
Well, he should have changed it. To me, it's like that's
Mhm. I
alerting.
just,
That's
for me, it's how it was worded in a way um that made me laugh out loud that it was like to they needed him to confess to a crime, but the way it was worded to him was like, well, before you join us, I need you to tell me a secret. And it was the way he said it that I was like, this isn't a sleepover. Like, what are you doing? But he fell for it. He was so arrogant that he was like, obviously, these badasses want me in their badass club. I'll tell a secret to get in. It's like, get lost.
because I'm
Like,
a naughty boy.
yeah, like, no criminal organization is going to be like, hey, I need a secret to hear for you to enter. Like, get out. But
I also
I like that they fall for it.
I know. I also want to remind you, they like Brian Adams was like, yeah, I'm gonna call him by his full name. Brian Adams was like, ugh, my wife's giving me trouble. And then other Brian Doyle's like, I'll kill her for 20 grand. Like, what? Didn't even have to lead him there. Like, it was
No,
also like he just
he
offers it.
got
Like,
there.
what is with these men? Like, you know, this is why I was literally just about to say the most crass thing ever, but I'm just like, this is why you get caught, dude. Like, not that
Mhm.
I'm of course we want them caught. This is great that they,
Happy he was caught.
of
Yep.
course, but it's just so funny to me that it's like you didn't think that maybe you shouldn't immediately offer a stranger to kill his wife for 20 grand? I mean, this guy wants to, this is going to get into my bigger point um as I keep going, but I'll plant the seed now. What is your motive, Brian Doyle? Like
Right?
overall, what's your MO? Because it's really muddled. You just want to kill because then you shouldn't have ever gotten out of prison. Like again, the fact that he killed Catherine and then was like willing to be like, "Hey, I'll kill your wife for 20 grand." Like it's like have you just been chasing that high ever since? Are there other victims? I mean, these are the things that we always wonder about, right? I mean, it's very odd for someone to kill, I would say, for pleasure and then not do it again.
Sure.
Now, I know that you could argue if we are to believe that she turned him down for sex and that's why he killed her, then that's a different motive rather than just a pleasure
Right.
kill. But to your point, he picked up the knife before he went up there. So let's just say, even if it wasn't his quote intention to kill her, which I agree with you that I think it likely was, he was bringing up a knife, which is like, then maybe she turned him down. Maybe he was like, hey, I want to do some knife play. She was like, no, thanks. I'm not into that. And then he was like, okay, then here we go. But then why wouldn't there be a sexual component of the crime?
Mhm.
It's so rare, again, for a sexually motivated murder to not have a sexual assault involved, whether it be prior murder or post.
He also admitted to wearing a different pair of shoes there.
Right.
So it's like, so you knew something bad was going to happen.
Yeah, I don't buy this she turned me down for sex thing. I think he got naked because he didn't want blood spatter on clothing. Period.
Absolutely. I think it's possible that at some point, maybe they had sex once and
Sure.
then she was like, never again. And that pissed him off. Or he tried to make a move at some point and she went, no. And that pissed him off. And he decided he was going to come back and do something later. But the wearing different shoes, making sure his clothes were up, taking a knife upstairs on his way, like he planned this thing out.
Yeah. Yeah. This was definitely not a crime of passion. No, no fucking way. Um, the fact that they asked him, how did you feel after the murder? I felt nothing. How did you feel when Greg took the fall? It felt fucking great. This is such a psychologist hat moment. Like, it's like
Mm,
the fact that now I'm curious, like, I mean, listen, we also, as I always like to say, we've got an untrustworthy narrator, right? Like, we can't trust the narrator to the story, which is Brian Doyle, because we don't know what he really thought about that murder. We don't know what he really
right.
felt, etc. But if we are to believe and take what he's saying at face value, the idea that he would kill and feel nothing, but then feel, to quote him, fucking great when someone else got caught. Well,
Mm,
that's turning into a very interesting MO, because then it's like, so what? You just want the thrill of getting away with it? Is
mm,
that what your kink is, or your driving force? Because I also like that when they were asking him about how he would do a murder, he was like, "Well, I'll find an item from my neighbors that has their fingerprints on it." Like, these are kind of like, these are things that we don't often see in like, right? Like,
sure.
the serial killer world. I mean, the serial killer world is different anyway, but my point only being that it's like, it feels like he's really concerned. Again, he took off all of his clothes before he got there. He wore someone else's shoes. Like, this is a man who's going, I'm going to find a way to pin this on somebody else. I'm going to go and find something with one of my neighbor's fingerprints on it, and then plant that to make it look like it was theirs. These are thoughts that, again, like someone who's got bloodlust, or somebody who's just like wants to kill somebody or wants to inflict violence, isn't always thinking that far ahead and with the details that are specifically trying to make sure someone else is blamed for the crime. Offering the tape of Greg's of the song, telling the cops that he shoved his mother around and threw beer cans at her. Like, again, like, this is somebody that's very much like, and I'm not saying that murderers don't try to cover their tracks or blame other people. Sure they do, but to me it just feels like that almost feels like it's the focus of the thing that he gets off on,
Sure.
more so than the crime itself. Again, how did you feel after you murdered her? I felt nothing. You talk to a lot of serial killers, and that's not typically the answer. I mean, Dahmer talked about how he didn't like the killing. It was just a means to an end for him because he wanted to fully control the body. Um, but a lot of them really like it. That's kind of
Mm,
their whole thing.
mhm.
So the idea that he was doing something and then felt nothing, it's not that he felt good, it's not that he felt bad, he felt nothing, chills me.
Yes.
Chills me to my core. And I would be shocked if he hasn't killed other people. I don't think there's any way.
Oh,
He's trying to chase some sort of high, or he's trying to
mm,
feel something, or again, his kind of kink is getting off on other people getting blamed successfully for his crimes.
sure. I was
And I don't
also,
think you do that once and then never do it again.
oh, 100%. We have no idea. Like, I mean, again, he spent time in America. We have
Right.
no idea what he did down there. He was in Ontario for a chunk of time. Again, we have no idea. He left Newfoundland in like 95 and then
Sorry.
didn't get caught until 2001. So who knows what he did between those times?
And you and I both know it's not like there's never it's a horrifying fact that there is never a shortage of unsolved murders or
Mm,
missing people that are never found, or their disappearances and murders are never solved. Like,
yeah.
again, I think if this person was sophisticated enough to be thinking about wearing someone else's shoes to a crime, etc., do I
Mhm.
think that there's other victims? I just absolutely do.
Of course.
I mean,
Oh,
then it would be
absolutely.
interesting. Like, why would he tell Brian Adams and Mr. Big only about the first murder? And the fact that I just in earnest said Brian Adams and Mr. Big is crazy. Mr. Big also being a musical artist or band, whatever.
Oh,
Anyway, yeah, I just think, and I think too, we also have to, here's the thing. He's not a trustworthy narrator, but we can
right.
also listen to some of the things he says. So when they said to him, "How would you kill this woman?"
Hmm.
Notice that what he said was, I'm paraphrasing, but like, "I'll charm her, I'll get her into bed, and I'll strangle her." One, his other crime was not a strangulation. So that's interesting,
Right.
right? Two, but a strangulation being less messy. So maybe that was on his mind. But the other thing I'll say is, let's not take into account that that could have been what he did with Catherine that night too. Isn't it possible? He
Oh,
got the knife. He got upstairs. He got naked. Maybe he leaves the knife hidden somewhere, for example. He convinces her, "Hey, do you want to have sex with me?" Whatever. Maybe she says yes. And then he goes, "Here we go." Because again, in the way he described the way he would kill um, in the future, he said, "I'd charm her, I'd get her into bed, I'd strangle her." There was nothing about sex in there. There was nothing about, right? So for
right.
all we know, this could have been the night he decided, "I'm going to go over there, I'm going to charm her, I'm going to get her into bed, and then I'm going to kill her."
More than possible.
Right? I just don't know that I buy that it was like she turned him down for sex that one time and then he killed her. And I just don't trust him. Um, it's not to say that they weren't necessarily, they could have been in a secret relationship. Who knows? But he just doesn't seem to be driven by sex. It doesn't feel like that's a part of this for him.
There, I was also just thinking that there was a one of the excuses he gave. He said he just hated Greg so much
Right.
because they were such good friends when they were kids, and then when they got older, he said in the last couple years before the murder, he started acting like he was some sort of big shot. And I'm like, and by that, do you mean he met Tina? Like, is this a jealousy over like he met a slightly older woman who was interested in him and it was just jealous, which I mean, because again, this man and his whole like, well, how am I going to kill the woman? Earn her trust and get her into bed. It's like, no. Like, Don Juan, you are not. Like, I don't know how he thought he was going to charm a woman into bed, but I just, deep down, is there a lot of jealousy?
It could be. It
Which
could
makes
be.
me even happier that Greg and Tina are together 30
Yes.
plus years later.
I also think though, like if he's saying he felt absolutely nothing after the murder, I also wonder if it's actually only driven by opportunity. That it
Mm,
was like he saw this woman that he knows was struggling with mental issues. He knows her schedule. He knows how to get in and out of the house. Like there's part of me that's like we may be giving him too much credit by thinking that he gives a shit about anything or feels anything,
true.
right? But anyway, at the end of the day, this is what I said at the end because I couldn't help myself and couldn't help but save it. But like the fact that this man's parole was revoked and he was put back in jail. First of all, you know what I'll say it? We've always said we will celebrate the wins of law enforcement on this show.
Hmm.
It was not a win that he was let out to begin with, but I will say I will commend them for putting him back in jail because that is so rare. And typically, what we see on this show time and time again. We've talked about it so many times. A killer gets let out of prison, kills again, and then goes back. And then sometimes gets out again, kills again, and then goes back. But this is at
Yeah,
least, as far as we know, he didn't kill anyone else. It sounds like he was abusive to, he was definitely inappropriate with coworkers. It sounds like he was, potentially abusive with whoever his partner was. Who knows to what level? But at the end of the day, as far as we know, he did not kill again. And so thank God they put him back in there where he should never have gotten out of to begin with.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a wild ride.
Yeah. And
It's gonna kill me. It's gonna kill me now too. I need to figure out what the other case was with the Mr. Big sting.
if I can't remember the name, but I know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It
I
was a
want to say there
while
was a
ago.
golf course involved.
I'll
I
know
think
the
it was also
name.
on the East Coast.
I think it was Ontario.
No.
Um, I'll know the name when I see it. I believe it was Beverly Lynn Smith, which was episode 118,
Jesus.
which was March of 2023. Were we ever so young?
Listen, no, we weren't. But I'm going to revisit that episode because you know what? It'll be nice. It'll take us down memory lane, and I'll see if my detail of a golf course was correct because chances are it won't be. Um,
Ha!
Christy Oxborrow, fantastic work as always. What a story. What a tale. We don't deserve you. Thank you for your work. 12 out of 10.
I'm just jazzed to be here.
Oh, same. Listen, and I was jazzed to start this with some hardcore baseball talk, and I'll answer any baseball questions anytime you got them.
Thank
And we
God.
thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on this wild ride. If you haven't already, give us a follow on the socials on Instagram and YouTube at True Crime and Cocktails, on Twitter at Not Detectives. If you want some bonus content, go over to patreon.com/True Crime and Cocktails to learn more about our subscription-based service over there. The only place for official True Crime and Cocktails merch is, of course, truecrewmerch.com. So check that out if you're interested. And I've got 3 final concerts on my Canadian tour: November 6th in Oshawa, November 7th in Belleville, and November 18th in Toronto. So if you're going to come, get your tickets while you still can. LaurenAsh.band. Would love to see you there. Let's keep the bracelet parade going. My arms are getting full. Christy, do you want to tell the people about next week's episode?
On the next True Crime and Cocktails, Shelley Wiley.
Listen, don't know anything about her, and I look forward to learning it from my best gal. Christy, do you want to say goodnight to the people?
Good night to the Canadian treasure trio of Ash, Lee, and Levy. It sounds better when I organize the names different.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to say goodnight to the Toronto Blue Jays because they're good boys, no matter what happens.